The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched higher than most planetary skyscrapers. Ambassador Jae-sung Kim stood at the speaker's platform, surrounded by representatives from 40 different worlds. His dark suit looked plain compared to the flowing robes and glittering armor worn by the other delegates. Above him, holographic displays showed star maps, marked in threatening red. The Krethian Dominion had taken 12 worlds in 6 months. Jae-sung cleared his throat. The Krethian advance will not stop on its own. They have conquered every species they have encountered. We must act now, with force, before more innocent beings become slaves. High Chancellor Velmara of the Velthara leaned forward. Her crystalline skin reflected the chamber's lights like a living prism. Ambassador Kim, your concern is noted. However, humanity has been part of this council for barely 50 standard years. Perhaps you do not understand how we conduct military operations. I understand perfectly, Jae-sung replied. That is why I am worried. The Krethians do not fight with honor. They use tactics you consider barbaric. Surprise attacks, false surrenders, civilian shields. Your military doctrines are not prepared for this. A sound like grinding stones filled the chamber. Commander Vorask of the Dranok was laughing. The massive warrior stood 3 meters tall, his scaled hide covered in battle scars. The human speaks of warfare to us? We have defended the galaxy for 10,000 years. Your species still fights with kinetic projectiles and explosive chemistry. You are children, playing with fire. Jae-sung kept his voice calm. Yes, we use kinetic weapons. We also use orbital strikes, electronic warfare, psychological operations, and combined arms tactics. We have fought wars on every continent of our world, in every environment imaginable. We understand warfare not as ritual or honor, but as survival. The Qualathi elder's telepathic voice touched every mind in the chamber. Her ancient form floated in a suspension field, barely visible through layers of protective energy. Young ambassador, we appreciate your species' warrior spirit. However, the Council has access to energy weapons that can vaporize cities, shields that can stop any kinetic attack, and fleet coordination through quantum entanglement. The Krethians are dangerous, yes. But they are no match for our combined technological superiority. Technology is not everything, Jae-sung said. He pulled up his own holographic display, showing historical records. 6 months ago, the Krethians attacked the Peltharan colonies. The Peltharans had better weapons, better shields, better everything. They lost because the Krethians adapted. They learned. They used unconventional tactics. 3 billion Peltharans are now slaves. High Chancellor Velmara waved her hand dismissively. The Peltharans were unprepared. We are not. The Council has already approved a military response. Our coalition fleet will deploy within 1 standard month. Your human forces are not needed. Jae-sung looked around the chamber. He saw confidence in every alien face. They truly believed their superiority was absolute. He had seen this before. In Earth's history, powerful armies defeated by those they underestimated. I formally request that human military forces be included in the coalition, Jae-sung said. We can provide ground troops, tactical advisors, and special operations units. We have experience fighting asymmetric warfare. Commander Vorask's laughter boomed again. Ground troops? Ambassador, modern warfare is conducted in space. Planets are secured by orbital control and strategic bombardment. The age of soldiers fighting in mud ended millennia ago. Perhaps on your young world, you still engage in such primitive displays. But we have evolved beyond that. The Krethians have not evolved beyond it, Jae-sung replied. They win by taking ground and holding it, by using terrain and civilians as weapons. You cannot defeat that from orbit without massive civilian casualties. We will not need to, High Chancellor Velmara said. Our energy weapons are precise. Our AI targeting systems are flawless. We will eliminate Krethian military assets with surgical strikes, and their empire will collapse. Jae-sung felt frustration building in his chest, but he kept it from his face. High Chancellor, I have reviewed your combat doctrine. It assumes your enemy will fight according to established galactic conventions. The Krethians do not. They will. Enough. The Qualathi Elder's telepathic command silenced the chamber. Ambassador Kim, your warnings are appreciated. However, the Council has made its decision. The Coalition fleet will handle the Krethian threat. Human forces will remain in defensive positions around human space. Should the Krethians somehow penetrate our lines, you may defend your own worlds. Provide tea. And leaders, pleasing, to the scream. But you will not join the offensive. This council values all member species. But we must be realistic about capabilities. Your military technology is simply too far behind our own to be useful. The vote was called. 40 worlds voted to exclude human forces. Only Earth voted against. The holographic display showed the result in cold numbers. Jae-sung bowed slightly, according to protocol, and left the speaker's platform. As he walked through the massive corridors leading away from the chamber, his assistant, Lieutenant Yoon, fell into step beside him. Sir, they are making a terrible mistake. Yes, Jae-sung said quietly. But we cannot force them to accept help they do not want. General Park is not going to be happy about this. General Park understands politics, Jae-sung replied. She knows we offered. When they need us, and they will, we will be ready. Lieutenant Yoon hesitated. When they need us? You sound certain the coalition will fail. Jae-sung stopped walking and looked back toward the council chamber. Through the transparent walls, he could see the delegates celebrating their vote, confident in their superiority. Lieutenant, I have studied military history my entire adult life. I have seen patterns repeat across cultures and centuries. Arrogance always falls to adaptability. Rigid doctrine always breaks against flexibility. And those who laugh at warnings always learn too late. He pulled out his secure communicator and typed a brief message. It was encrypted with codes only Earth's military command could read. The message was simple. They refused. Prepare contingencies. Lieutenant Yoon read over his shoulder. What contingencies? General Park will know, Jae-sung said. She will position our forces where they can respond quickly when the call comes. And Lieutenant, the call will come. The Krethians are not going to surrender just because the galaxy sends a technologically superior fleet. They are going to fight dirty. Fight smart. And fight to win. And when the coalition realizes their perfect tactics do not work against an imperfect enemy, they will remember that humanity offered to help. And then, Jae-sung resumed walking, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. Then we show them what humans do best. We fight wars that need to be won, not wars that look impressive. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. And we prove that sometimes, the species the galaxy laughs at is the species the galaxy needs most. Behind them, the celebration in the council chamber continued. The galaxy's finest prepared for a war they did not understand, against an enemy they underestimated. And in the cold mathematics of military strategy, Jae-sung knew exactly how this would end. The only question was how many would die before the galaxy stopped laughing. 6 months had passed since the council's vote. The coalition fleet had assembled at the edge of Krethian space, impressive and mighty. 300 warships from 20 different species, all equipped with the finest technology the galaxy could provide. Energy shields that could absorb the output of a star. Weapons that could crack planets. Coordination systems that linked every ship in perfect tactical harmony. Commander Vorask stood on the bridge of the flagship, the massive dreadnought named Time's Eternal Justice **. Around him, holographic displays showed the Threshold Worlds, a cluster of 6 planets recently conquered by the Krethians. Intelligence reports said 15 million civilians were being held as slaves on these worlds. The Coalition's mission was simple: destroy the Krethian fleet, liberate the planets, and send a message that the galaxy would not tolerate conquest. "All ships report ready," announced the Velthara tactical officer. Her crystalline fingers danced across energy controls. Enemy fleet detected. At the third planet, 47 capital ships, twice that number in support vessels. "Our technological advantage is approximately 4-1. Vorask nodded, satisfied. "Maintain formation, Alpha 7. We advance as one unified force. Their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. This will be a short battle." The fleet moved forward in perfect geometric formation, a sight that would have impressed any military strategist. Each ship knew its exact position, its role, its targeting priorities. The Coalition had trained for this for months. Everything was calculated, predicted, optimized. The Krethian fleet met them at the third planet's orbital space. The enemy ships looked crude compared to the gleaming Coalition vessels. Rough metal hulls, covered in what appeared to be random modifications. No matching designs, no apparent organization. Commander Vorask almost felt sorry for them. "Fire at will," he commanded. Energy beams lanced across space. The Coalition's first volley struck the Krethian fleet with devastating force. 3 enemy ships exploded immediately. 5 more showed critical damage. The bridge crew cheered. This was easier than expected. Then everything went wrong. The Krethians scattered. Instead of maintaining formation and fighting according to standard fleet doctrine, each ship moved independently. Some dove toward the planet's atmosphere. Others accelerated randomly, ignoring tactical sense. Several ships that appeared heavily damaged suddenly turned and fired at close range, targeting the Coalition's sensor arrays. "Evasive action," Vorask shouted. But the Coalition ships were locked in their formation. Changing course required coordination across the entire fleet. The Krethians had no such limitation. They swarmed like insects, firing from unexpected angles, using debris and planetary gravity as cover. Worse still, the Krethians positioned their ships near civilian orbital stations. Every station held thousands of captive civilians, visible on the Coalition's scanners. When Coalition ships tried to target the Krethian vessels, their AI safety protocols triggered warnings. Too much risk of civilian casualties. Too high probability of collateral damage. "Override the safety protocols," ordered the Qualathi elder, observing from her chamber. "We cannot fight with our hands tied, but the Dranok could not do it. Their honor code absolutely forbade firing near non-combatants. The Velthara could not do it. Their AI systems would not permit actions with high civilian risk factors. The Qualathi could not do it. Their telepathic sensitivity made them feel every death in range, and deliberately causing civilian casualties would destroy their mental coordination. The Krethians knew all of this. They had studied their enemy. They exploited every weakness. 3 Krethian ships broadcast surrender signals. The Coalition ships held fire, waiting for the enemy to power down weapons and lower shields, according to galactic convention. Instead, the surrendering ships accelerated at full speed and rammed into Coalition cruisers, their hulls packed with explosives. 2 Velthara ships and 1 Dranok destroyer were destroyed in the suicide attacks. "They are savages," Vorask roared. "They do not fight with honor." "No," said the Qualathi elder quietly, her telepathic voice heavy with realization. "They fight to win." The battle deteriorated into chaos. The Coalition's perfect formations broke apart under the Krethian assault. Ships that had trained to fight as a coordinated whole found themselves isolated, unable to adapt to the flowing, unpredictable combat. The Krethians used every dirty trick imaginable. They broadcast false distress signals from civilian stations, drawing Coalition ships into ambushes. They hacked communication frequencies, sending contradictory orders. They used chemical propellants that created sensor-blocking clouds, hiding their movements. By the time Commander Vorask ordered a retreat, the coalition had lost 23 ships. The Creathians had lost more, but they could afford losses. The coalition could not afford the political cost of this humiliation. The fleet withdrew to a safe distance. On the flagship's bridge, Commander Vorask stared at the tactical display, in disbelief. The finest fleet the galaxy had assembled in a century had been beaten by an enemy with inferior technology. How? He asked aloud. How did they defeat us? The Qualathi elder's voice was sad. Because we fought the war we wanted to fight. They fought the war that existed. We brought honor, and tactics, and beautiful formations. They brought adaptability and ruthlessness, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary. We were playing a game. They were surviving. High Chancellor Velmara appeared on a holographic channel from the council chambers. Her crystalline face showed cracks of stress. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow this defeat to stand. Prepare for a second assault with reinforcements. More ships will not help, the Qualathi elder said. We need a different approach. We need forces that can fight the way the Creathians fight. We need soldiers who understand unconventional warfare. There was a long silence. Everyone on the bridge knew what the elder meant. There was only one species in the council that specialized in such warfare. The species they had dismissed 6 months ago. Meanwhile, in a secure facility on Earth, General Mincio Park reviewed the reports from the Threshold Worlds battle. Every detail had been transmitted to human intelligence through carefully placed observation drones. She had watched the coalition fail exactly as Ambassador Jae-sung had predicted. Her aide, Major Chen, stood beside her. No, General Park said. They will contact us. Pride is a powerful force, but fear is stronger. They are afraid now. They will ask for help, and when they do, General Park turned off the holographic display. Outside her window, she could see training grounds where human soldiers practiced combat drills. Infantry, moving through urban terrain. Armored vehicles coordinating with air support. Special forces running infiltration scenarios. These soldiers trained for wars that were ugly, complicated, and real. Not wars that looked impressive on tactical displays. When they ask, General Park said, we will show them what humanity learned through 10,000 years of warfare. We will show them that technology alone does not win battles. Adaptability does. Determination does. The willingness to do hard things for the right reasons does. Major Chen nodded. The Creathians won't expect us. No. General Park agreed. They have studied the coalition's weaknesses, but they have not studied ours. They think we are primitives with outdated weapons. They think kinetic rounds and chemical explosives are laughable compared to energy weapons and shields. Are they wrong? General Park smiled coldly. A bullet does not care about your shield technology if it is fired from the right angle, at the right time, by a soldier who understands ballistics, wind, gravity, and timing. A explosive does not care about your armor if it is placed by someone who knows exactly where your structural weaknesses are. The Creathians are about to learn an old Earth lesson. It is not the weapon that matters most. It is the warrior carrying it. 3 days later, a private communication arrived from the Galactic Council. It was encrypted and marked highest priority. The message was brief and humiliating for those who sent it. We require human military assistance. Terms. Negotiable. 2. Terms. Ambassador Jae-sung read the message from his quarters on the council station. He thought about saying, I told you so, but that would serve no purpose. Instead, he composed a simple reply. Humanity stands ready to defend the innocent. We will deploy immediately. 4. End quote. 4. He sent a second message to General Park. They finally asked. Show them what we can do. The galaxy had laughed at human warnings. Now the galaxy would watch human warriors. And the Creathians who thought they understood warfare, were about to receive an education in human military doctrine. General Minseo Park stood before the holographic display in the briefing room. Behind her, 300 officers watched in silence. These were the commanders of the human expeditionary force, about to deploy to a war the galaxy had already lost once. "The Galactic Council has requested our assistance," General Park began. They were polite about it this time. No lectures about our primitive technology. No jokes about kinetic weapons. Fear makes people honest. A few officers smiled, but most remained serious. They had all seen the recordings of the Coalition's defeat at the Threshold Worlds. "Our mission is to liberate 6 planets currently under Crethean control. 15 million civilians are held as slaves. The Crethean occupation force numbers approximately 2 million soldiers, supported by orbital assets and fortified positions. The Council is providing us with 30,000 troops." Colonel Rivera raised her hand. 30,000 against 2 million? Those are terrible odds. Yes, General Park agreed. Which is why we are not going to fight their war. We are going to fight ours. The Coalition failed because they relied on technological superiority and rigid tactics. They expected an honorable battle between organized fleets. Instead, they got chaos, deception, and asymmetric warfare. The Cretheans won because they adapted, and the Coalition could not. She pulled up new tactical displays. "We will adapt better." The Coalition fought from orbit, trying to minimize ground engagement. "We are going to do the opposite. We are putting boots on the ground immediately. Every planet, every city, every strategic location. The Cretheans want to use civilians as shields. We will be there on the ground, where we can protect those civilians, while eliminating enemy forces." Major Kim spoke up. "General, the Council representatives are worried about our methods. They keep using words like brutal and excessive. Let them worry," General Park said. "We are not here to make the Council comfortable. We are here to win and to save lives. The Coalition tried to fight a clean war and lost. We will fight an effective war and win. There is a difference between brutality and efficiency. We will be efficient." She changed the display to show the human fleet. 30 transport ships, 20 escort vessels, and a dozen support craft. Nothing compared to the Coalition's massive dreadnoughts. But these ships were designed differently. Fast, stealthy, and built to deliver soldiers to hostile ground quickly. Our fleet uses active camouflage technology that the Council does not know we have developed. We will approach the Threshold Worlds without being detected until we are ready to strike. Once we begin orbital insertion, we go all in. No slow, careful approach. We hit 6 planets simultaneously with overwhelming local force. Colonel Zhang asked, "What about the Coalition forces? Are they supporting us?" "Officially, yes," General Park said. "The Council has ordered their remaining ships to provide orbital fire support and supply lines. Unofficially, they will stay back and watch. They want to see if we succeed before committing more resources. We are a test. If we win, they take credit. If we lose, they blame human recklessness." "Sounds fair," someone muttered sarcastically. General Park allowed herself a slight smile. "Politics aside, we have advantages the Coalition did not. First, we understand asymmetric warfare. The Cretheans use tactics that seem dishonest by galactic standards, but are perfectly normal by human historical standards. False surrenders, civilian shields, surprise attacks, psychological warfare. We have seen all of this before. We know how to counter it. Second, we use combined arms doctrine. Infantry, armor, artillery, air support, special operations, electronic warfare, all working together. The Coalition's forces are specialized. Their infantry rarely works with their fleet. Their AI drones operate independently. We operate as a single coordinated force, with human judgment at every level. Third, we are willing to make hard choices. If the enemy uses a civilian building as a firing position, the coalition's protocols lock up. They cannot decide whether to return fire. We can. We will evacuate civilians when possible, eliminate the threat when necessary, and always prioritize protecting innocent lives over our own comfort. War is not clean, but our purpose is clear. Stop the Crethians and save those they have enslaved. She pulled up the deployment schedule. We launch in 6 hours. First wave hits the least defended planet to establish a beachhead. Second and third waves follow at 12-hour intervals. By the time the Crethians realize what is happening, we will have forces on all 6 worlds. Questions? Major Chen raised his hand. What about rules of engagement? The Council is very concerned about collateral damage. Our ROE is simple, General Park said. Protect civilians. Eliminate enemy combatants. Use minimum necessary force to achieve objectives. If the enemy surrenders legitimately, we take prisoners. If they fake surrender and attack, we respond with lethal force and do not accept further surrenders from that unit. We document everything with body cameras and drone footage. Let the Council review our actions after we win. An officer in the back spoke up. General, the Crethians have been studying galactic military doctrine for years, but we are new to them. Do they even know how humans fight? No, General Park said. And that is our greatest advantage. They know we use kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and outdated technology. They think we are easy targets. They have never faced human combined arms assault. They have never experienced human special operations. They have never seen how we fight when we are protecting people who cannot protect themselves. They are going to learn. The briefing continued for another hour, covering logistics, communication protocols, medical support, and extraction plans. When it was finished, the officers dispersed to brief their own units. General Park remained in the briefing room with her senior staff. Ambassador Jae-sung joined them via holographic link from the Council station. The Council is very nervous, Jae-sung reported. They are publicly supporting the operation, but privately, several members are betting we will fail. Commander Vhorask said humans are brave, but inexperienced in galactic-scale warfare. He is correct, General Park said. We have no experience in galactic-scale warfare. But the Crethians are not fighting at galactic scale. They are fighting at ground level, building by building, just like humans have fought for thousands of years. That is where we excel. The Council will be watching, Jae-sung warned. Every decision you make will be analyzed and criticized. If civilian casualties exceed projections, they will use it against us. Understood, General Park said. But Ambassador, if we fight the way the Council wants us to fight, we will lose just like they did. We must fight our way. We must trust our training, our experience, and our judgment. Can you protect us politically while we do what needs to be done? Jae-sung nodded. I will handle the Council. You handle the Crethians. Just win, General. Win and bring our people home. The holographic link ended. General Park looked at her staff. 6 hours. Make sure every soldier understands the mission. We are not going to the threshold worlds to impress the galaxy with our tactics. We are going to liberate 15 million people from slavery and show the Crethians that they made a mistake when they underestimated humanity. Major Chen spoke quietly. General, what if we do fail? What if 30,000 soldiers are not enough? General Park looked at the tactical displays showing the threshold worlds. 6 planets, 15 million civilians, 2 million enemy soldiers. Impossible odds by any reasonable calculation. But humans had faced impossible odds before. Then we fail having tried everything, she said. But we will not fail. The coalition failed because they fought with arrogance. They believed their technology made them superior. We are not arrogant. We know we are outgunned. outnumbered, and under-equipped by galactic standards. But we also know that wars are not won by the side with the best weapons. Wars are won by the side that wants victory more, that adapts faster, and that refuses to quit. The Crethians want to conquer. We want to protect. Our purpose is stronger. Quote, she turned off the displays. 6 hours. Dismissed. As the staff left, General Park stood alone in the briefing room. Through the window, she could see the human fleet preparing for departure. Soldiers loading equipment, engineers running final checks, medical teams preparing field hospitals. These men and women were about to face an enemy that had already defeated the galaxy's finest forces, but they were human. And humans had a saying that the galaxy was about to understand. It is not the size of the dog in the fight that matters. It is the size of the fight in the dog. The Crethians were about to discover just how much fight humanity possessed. The human fleet emerged from stealth mode, directly above the fourth planet of the Threshold Worlds. Crethian sensors detected them only seconds before the first dropships launched. By then, it was too late to organize a proper defense. General Park watched from the command ship as 300 dropships descended through the atmosphere. Crethian anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky, but the dropships weaved and dodged, their pilots using evasive maneuvers the enemy had never seen. The Coalition's landing craft had descended in neat, predictable patterns. Human dropships moved like angry hornets. Impossible to track, impossible to predict. First wave is touching down, reported Major Chen. Sectors Alpha through Delta, secured. Casualties are within acceptable parameters. On the planet below, Captain J1 Lee led his company through the ruins of what had once been a residential district. Buildings stood empty, their windows shattered. The Crethians had cleared the civilians to use as labor in other areas. That made this territory a free-fire zone. Drones up, Captain Lee ordered. I want eyes on everything within 2 kilometers. Small reconnaissance drones, each no bigger than a bird, scattered in all directions. They fed real-time imagery back to every soldier's helmet display. The technology was simple by galactic standards, but the coordination was something the Coalition had never achieved. Every human soldier could see what every drone saw, what every other soldier saw, creating a shared battlefield awareness that made them fight as one organism. Contact, northeast, 800 meters, called Sergeant Park. Crethian patrol. 15 hostiles, moving toward the civilian detention center. Captain Lee checked his tactical display. The detention center held approximately 3,000 civilians. The Crethian patrol was moving to reinforce it, knowing it would be a human target. Sniper teams, take position. Infantry. Advance using Route Bravo. Armor support. Standby. We do this quiet until we cannot. The human forces moved through the ruined city like water flowing around obstacles. They used cover effectively, advanced in coordinated teams, and communicated with hand signals when radio silence was necessary. The Crethian patrol never saw them coming. The first Crethian soldier dropped when a sniper's bullet struck him from 900 meters away. The others scattered, seeking cover, but human infantry had already flanked their position. 3 grenades landed precisely where the enemy was hiding. The small firefight was over in 40 seconds. Detention center, 200 meters ahead, reported Sergeant Park. Scanning shows 43 Crethian guards, 3,000 civilians. The guards are using the civilians as shields, just like intelligence predicted. This was the scenario the Coalition had failed to handle. When the enemy used civilians as protection, the Coalition's protocols and honor codes prevented effective action. Humans approached the problem differently. Captain Lee signaled for his specialist team to move forward. Lieutenant Soo Jin Kim led a squad trained in hostage rescue. They carried non-lethal weapons alongside their standard rifles, and they had trained for exactly this scenario countless times. We go in fast and precise, Lieutenant Kim said to her squad. Stun grenades first, thermal imaging to identify hostiles, eliminate guards while protecting civilians. Remember, the civilians are terrified. They have been slaves for months. We are here to save them, not scare them more. The assault was surgical. Stun grenades disabled the guards' ability to respond. Human soldiers poured into the detention center, using multiple entry points simultaneously. Thermal imaging let them distinguish the armed guards from the unarmed civilians, even through smoke and confusion. Within 3 minutes, all 43 guards were neutralized. Detention center secured, Captain Lee reported. 3,000 civilians safe. Medical teams, move in. We need trauma care and transport ready. Across all 6 planets, similar operations unfolded. Human forces hit Krethian positions with speed and coordination the enemy could not match. When the Krethians fortified buildings, human artillery struck with precision, guided by drone spotters. When the Krethians tried to retreat, human air support cut off their escape routes. When the Krethians attempted their favorite tactic of false surrender, human forces had clear protocols. Verify surrender with weapons on the ground, hands visible, no sudden movements. Any deviation resulted in immediate return fire. On the second planet, the Krethians tried to stage an ambush, using a captured coalition ship, broadcasting a distress signal. The coalition had fallen for this trick before. Humans did not. Odor. Reconnaissance drones identified the trap hours before the Krethians expected. Human special operations teams infiltrated the area, planted charges on the ship's power core, and eliminated the enemy ambush force from behind. The captured ship was destroyed before it could be used as a weapon. On the 5th planet, Krethian forces attempted a chemical weapons attack on a human position. The Coalition's forces had no protection against such attacks, making chemical weapons devastatingly effective. Human soldiers had full protective gear and training. The chemical attack failed completely, and the human response was immediate. Artillery struck the Krethian chemical weapons depot, destroying their entire stockpile. A message was sent through all channels. Use chemical weapons, and we will ensure you can never use them again. Commander Vorask watched from the Coalition flagship with growing disbelief. The tactical displays showed human forces advancing on all 6 planets simultaneously. Their progress was not slow and careful like the Coalition's had been. It was aggressive and relentless. They took ground, held it, and moved forward again. How are they doing this? Vorask asked. They have 30,000 soldiers against 2 million Krethians. The mathematics do not make sense. Vorask out. Vorask out. The Qualathi elder's telepathic voice was thoughtful. They are not fighting all 2 million at once. They are fighting small groups, isolated and overwhelmed by local superiority. The humans concentrate, force at specific points, achieve victory, then move to the next target. They are never where the Krethians expect. And when they arrive with overwhelming numbers for that specific engagement. But how do they coordinate so effectively? High Chancellor Velmara asked. Our AI systems could not manage this level of tactical coordination. Oh, they are not using AI, the elder replied. Every decision is made by a human commander who understands the local situation. Their generals trust their captains. Their captains trust their sergeants. Their sergeants trust their soldiers. Each level makes decisions appropriate to their perspective. It is decentralized command, with centralized purpose. We could not do this because we rely on perfect coordination from above. They succeed because they trust intelligent adaptation from below. On the 3rd planet, Captain Lee's company had liberated 4 detention centers in 1 day. They encountered increasing Krethian resistance as the enemy began to understand the human strategy. But understanding it and stopping it were different things. Enemy reinforcements incoming, reported Major Chen from orbit. Krethian Command is sending 2 divisions to your sector. Approximately 20,000 soldiers. They are going to try to overwhelm your position. Captain Lee checked his ammunition and supply status. His company had 200 soldiers, 20,000 against 200. By galactic standards, the situation was hopeless. Request artillery support on these coordinates. Captain Lee said, marking locations on his tactical display, also requesting air support, combat drones, and resupply of ammunition. And tell General Park, we will hold this position. Confirmed, Major Chen replied. Support incoming. Hold for 8 minutes. 8 minutes seemed like a long time when the enemy was approaching. But humans had learned patience in war. Captain Lee positioned his soldiers in defensive positions, using the urban terrain to create kill zones and fallback points. He placed his heavy weapons where they could cover the most ground. He set up communications relays so every soldier could coordinate with others. When the Crethean forces arrived, they came in a massive wave, expecting to overwhelm the small human force through sheer numbers. They had used this tactic successfully against the coalition, whose forces would panic and retreat when faced with such impossible odds. Humans did not panic. Humans adjusted fire and called in support. Artillery rounds began falling on the Crethean advance, precisely targeted by drone spotters. Attack helicopters appeared overhead, their guns tearing into enemy formations. Combat drones swarmed the Cretheans' flanks. And the human infantry, those 200 soldiers, held their positions and fired with disciplined accuracy. The Crethean commander had expected a rout. Instead, he got a slaughter. His forces were torn apart by combined arms fire, unable to advance, unable to retreat effectively. Within an hour, the 20,000 Cretheans were scattered and broken. Human casualties were 43 wounded, 0 dead. Position held, Captain Lee reported. Across the threshold worlds, the story repeated. Humans took ground and held it. They protected civilians. They eliminated enemy forces with brutal efficiency, and they did it all while using primitive, kinetic weapons and chemical explosives that the galaxy had dismissed as outdated. The Crethean High Command began to realize they had made a terrible mistake. They had studied galactic military doctrine carefully. They knew how to exploit the coalition's weaknesses. But humans did not fight like the rest of the galaxy. Humans fought like humans, with tactics refined through 10,000 years of warfare on a harsh planet, where only the adaptable survived. In 2 weeks, human forces liberated 3 planets completely. The other 3 were nearly secured. 15 million civilians were free. The Crethean occupation was collapsing, but the Cretheans had one last card to play. Intelligence reports reached General Park that the enemy was consolidating all remaining forces at Threshold Prime, the capital world where 2 million civilians remained. The Cretheans were preparing for a final, desperate defense. They would throw everything they had left at the human forces. It would be the bloodiest battle yet. General Park looked at the tactical displays. Threshold Prime was heavily fortified. The Cretheans had orbital defenses, armored divisions, and fortified positions throughout the capital city. They had pulled back their best troops for this defense, and they had 2 million civilians to use as leverage. Send this message to all units, General Park said. We are going to Threshold Prime. We are going to finish this. And we are going to show the Cretheans and the galaxy what happens when you make humanity fight for something that matters. Threshold Prime burned under a red sun. The capital city sprawled across a massive coastal region, home to 2 million civilians, now trapped in the crossfire of a desperate enemy's last stand. The Crethean commander, war leader Thask, had fortified every building, mined every street, and positioned his remaining forces throughout the civilian population. If the humans wanted to win, they would have to pay for it in blood. General Park stood in the command center of her flagship, watching the tactical displays. 25,000 human soldiers had survived the campaigns on the other 5 planets. They were tired, wounded, and running low on supplies. Against them stood the Cretheans' finest units, 60,000 elite soldiers who had been pulled back for this final defense. Intelligence shows the Cretheans have rigged civilian shelters with explosives, reported Major Chen. If we advance too quickly, they will detonate them and blame us for the casualties. Monsters, muttered Colonel Rivera, using innocents as weapons. Desperate monsters, General Park corrected. Which makes them more dangerous. Desperation makes people unpredictable, but it also makes them prone to mistakes. We will be patient, precise, and overwhelming. This ends today. The battle began at dawn. Human artillery struck Krethian command centers and communications hubs simultaneously, decapitating their coordination. Special operations teams infiltrated the city during the night, identifying the locations of explosive charges in civilian shelters and disarming them silently. When the main assault began, the Krethians discovered their hostages were no longer leverage. Captain Lee led his company through the eastern district. The fighting was brutal and close. Every building was a fortress. Every corner was an ambush. The Krethians fought with the fury of those who knew they were losing. But humans fought with the determination of those who refused to accept failure. Sniper on the 3rd floor, called Sergeant Park. He's killed 2 of ours already. Captain Lee directed a drone to scan the building. The thermal imaging showed the sniper's position clearly. Drone strike. Authorized. Minimal explosive. Precision targeting. A small drone, no bigger than a dinner plate, flew through a shattered window and detonated next to the sniper. The explosion was carefully calculated to eliminate the target without bringing down the building. The sniper position went silent. The company advanced, clearing buildings room by room. They found civilians hiding in basements, terrified and starving. Human medics immediately provided care, while soldiers moved them to safe zones behind the advancing lines. This slowed the advance, but General Park had been clear. Protect the civilians, no matter the cost. On the Western Front, Lieutenant Kim's squad encountered a Krethian defensive position built around a civilian hospital. The enemy knew humans would not risk artillery strikes near medical facilities. They were correct, but they underestimated human creativity. We go in through the sewers, Lieutenant Kim decided. Engineering team. I need an entry point mapped in 5 minutes. The human engineering team used ground-penetrating radar to map the hospital's underground infrastructure. They found an old maintenance tunnel that connected to the basement. The squad entered quietly, emerging inside the hospital's lower levels. They cleared the building floor by floor, using non-lethal weapons to avoid harming patients. The Krethian defenders were captured without firing a shot. But not every engagement was so clean. In the city's central district, a massive Krethian armored column attempted a breakthrough, trying to smash through human lines with heavy vehicles. The battle turned into a hellish close-range engagement. Human anti-armor teams knocked out Krethian vehicles with missiles fired from rooftops and concealed positions. Attack helicopters engaged enemy armor in brutal air-to-ground combat. Infantry fought Krethian soldiers in the streets, sometimes hand-to-hand when ammunition ran low. Captain Lee found himself in the middle of this chaos. His company had been assigned to hold a critical intersection, and the Krethians were throwing everything at them. Explosions shook the ground. Buildings collapsed from artillery fire. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal. We cannot hold this position much longer, Sergeant Park shouted over the noise of gunfire. We need to fall back. No, Captain Lee said. If we lose this intersection, the Krethians can flank our entire eastern advance. We hold. Sir, we have 15 soldiers still combat ready. They have 300 coming at us. Then we make those 15 count. Captain Lee called in every asset available. Artillery strikes walked along the approaching Krethian column, buying seconds. Combat drones harassed the enemy advance, distracting them. Other human units shifted positions to provide supporting fire. And his 15 soldiers dug in, taking careful shots, making every bullet count. The Krethians reached the intersection. The fighting became desperate. Captain Lee fired until his rifle was empty, switched to his sidearm, and kept fighting. Beside him, his soldiers did the same. They were bloodied, exhausted, and outnumbered. But they did not break. Then reinforcements arrived. 2 companies of human marines that General Park had held in reserve crashed into the Krethian flank. The enemy column, already battered by the intersection's defenders, shattered under the new assault. The Krethians retreated, leaving their dead and wounded behind. Captain Lee collapsed against a ruined wall, breathing hard. His company had held. The cost had been high, but they had held. Similar scenes played out across the city. Humans held positions that should have been overrun. They completed missions that should have been impossible. They protected civilians that the enemy tried to use as weapons. And slowly, block by block, building by building, they pushed the Krethians back. In orbit, the Coalition fleet watched in silence. Commander Vhorask could not believe what he was seeing. Human forces were winning against impossible odds, using tactics the Coalition had never imagined. They were not trying to minimize their own casualties, they were trying to maximize enemy losses while protecting civilians. It was brutal, efficient, and undeniably effective. The humans are fighting like demons, Vhorask said quietly. No. The Qualathi elder corrected. They are fighting like guardians. Every decision they make is calculated to protect those who cannot protect themselves. They accept risk to their own soldiers, rather than risk civilian lives. High Chancellor Velmara watched a human medic treating both human and Krethian wounded without distinction. We were wrong about them. Very wrong. The battle reached its climax at the planetary governor's palace, where war leader Thask had established his final command post. He had 1,000 elite guards, and enough firepower to level the building if defeat became certain. He also had 50 civilian staff members he had taken hostage, betting that humans would not risk their lives. General Park received the intelligence report and made her decision immediately. We are going in. Special Operations. You have the lead. Major Kim commanded the Special Operations Force. 100 of humanity's finest soldiers, trained for exactly this type of mission. They approached the palace from multiple directions, using stealth and patience. The Krethian guards were alert, but they were looking for an obvious assault. Not invisible infiltrators, the human teams entered the palace through ventilation systems, maintenance tunnels, and disguised as captured Krethians. They reached the hostages first, evacuating them silently while Krethian guards wondered why their prisoners were disappearing. By the time war leader Thask realized what was happening, it was too late. The special operations teams converged on the command center. The battle was short and decisive. The elite Krethian guards were skilled, but they were not prepared for human special operations soldiers who had trained their entire lives for these moments. Within 20 minutes, the palace was secured. War leader Thask was captured alive. The Battle of Threshold Prime was over. The city was battered and scarred, but it was free. The 2 million civilians began emerging from shelters, disbelieving that the occupation had ended. Human soldiers, exhausted and wounded, helped them find food, water, and medical care. General Park walked through the liberated streets, seeing her soldiers sharing their rations with hungry children, carrying elderly civilians to medical stations, and rebuilding what the war had destroyed. This was victory. But it was also responsibility. 3 days later, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. For the first time, it was not to debate policy. It was to honor those who had achieved what the Council thought impossible. Ambassador Jae-sung stood in the Great Chamber, but today he was not alone. General Park stood beside him, still wearing her battle uniform. Captain Lee was there, along with Lieutenant Kim and dozens of other human soldiers who had fought on Threshold Prime. High Chancellor Velmara spoke first. Her crystalline voice carried genuine humility. Ambassador Kim, General Park, 6 months ago, I dismissed your warnings. I called humanity barely civilized. I laughed at your offer of military assistance. I was wrong, and my error cost lives. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize. Commander Vhorask stepped forward. The massive Dranok warrior bowed deeply, a gesture of ultimate respect in his culture. I have fought for 10,000 years. I have led armies across 100 worlds. But I have never seen warriors as skilled, as adaptable, or as brave as the humans who liberated the threshold worlds. You have taught this old soldier that honor is not just about how you fight, but why you fight. You fought for those who could not fight for themselves. That is the truest honor. Honor. End on. The Qualathi elder's telepathic voice filled the chamber with warmth. Humanity possesses a terrible gift. You understand warfare in ways the rest of us have forgotten or never learned. You can be brutal when necessary, gentle when possible, and always adaptable. But what makes you truly exceptional is that you never lose sight of your purpose. You did not fight to prove your superiority. You fought to protect the innocent. That makes you not just warriors, but guardians. General Park stepped forward to respond. She looked around the chamber at the representatives of 40 worlds, all watching her with respect instead of dismissal. We did not want this war, General Park said. Ambassador Kim warned you 6 months ago, and you laughed. We offered to help, and you refused. We could be angry about that, but anger does not serve anyone. Instead, we will speak plainly. The galaxy has been at peace for so long that you forgot what war truly means. You thought superior technology made you unbeatable. You thought following proper doctrine guaranteed victory. You thought warfare was a gentleman's game with rules everyone followed. The Crethians taught you otherwise. Humanity has never had the luxury of such illusions. We evolved on a harsh world where survival meant adapting to every threat. We fought wars for 10,000 years, learning hard lessons in blood and sacrifice. We know that technology without tactics is useless. We know that doctrine without adaptability is suicide. We know that victory requires understanding your enemy, understanding yourself, and being willing to do what is necessary to protect what matters. You called our weapons primitive. Perhaps they are. But a soldier with a rifle and the will to use it effectively is more dangerous than a soldier with an energy weapon who does not understand warfare. You called our tactics brutal. Perhaps they are. But we saved 15 million civilians and defeated 2 million enemy soldiers with minimal collateral damage. Your coalition could not do that with all your advanced technology and perfect doctrine. We are not asking for gratitude. We are asking for understanding. Humanity is different from the rest of the galaxy. We have capabilities you find uncomfortable. We fight wars you prefer to avoid. But when the next threat comes, and it will come, remember what you learned. Remember that technology alone is not enough. Remember that underestimating your allies is as dangerous as underestimating your enemies. And remember that when humanity offers to help, perhaps it is wise to listen. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, every representative stood. It was a gesture of respect, of acknowledgement, of understanding. The galaxy had laughed at human warnings. Now the galaxy knew better. Ambassador Jae-sung allowed himself a small smile. 6 months ago, he had left this chamber in frustration, knowing his warnings were dismissed. Today, he left with humanity's reputation transformed. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of laughing at humans. As the ceremony ended and the human delegation prepared to leave, Commander Vohorask approached General Park privately. General, I have one question. Your soldiers were outnumbered, outgunned, and operating far from home. Yet they never gave up, never retreated beyond tactical necessity, never abandoned their mission. How do you create such warriors? General Park thought for a moment. We do not create them, Commander. We simply give them something worth fighting for. Every human soldier in the threshold worlds knew they were fighting to free slaves, to protect civilians, to stop an enemy that had to be stopped. When you fight for something greater than yourself, when you fight to protect others, you find strength you did not know you had. That is not unique to humanity. Any species can find that strength, but you must be willing to pay the price. And what is the price? The willingness to do hard things for the right reasons, the willingness to risk everything for those who cannot protect themselves, the willingness to be called brutal, primitive, and uncivilized by those who do not understand that sometimes the Guardians must become warriors to protect the innocent. Commander Vorask nodded slowly. Then, humanity are true warriors, and true guardians. The galaxy is fortunate to have you. General Park looked back at the council chamber one last time. The galaxy did not want us. But when they needed us, we came anyway. That is what Guardians do. The human delegation returned to Earth as heroes. But General Park knew the truth. They had not fought for glory or recognition. They had fought because 15 million people needed help, and humanity could not turn away from that need. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And humanity had proven something more important than superiority. They had proven that when the innocent needed protection, when the weak needed defenders, when hope seemed lost, humanity would stand and fight. That was not supremacy. That was duty. And the galaxy would never forget it.